Now let's combine some pre-made materials with some painted layers to create the effect that we want. So in this case, we're going to work on the claws. So we're going to go to the claw material right here. And you can see, again, just like with all of the other ones, there's one blank layer here. Let's go ahead and add the bone stylized material right here. And so now we can see that basic look on here, which looks pretty good. It gives us that darkness on the interior of some of these lines here. In the low spots in the claws, you can see it up here on these as well. So let's say now we want to take this and start to add our own painted detail to this. Well, all we have to do is go to this paint layer, go to our paintbrush, and let's actually choose, I'm going to pull this up a little bit, go to brushes, and let's go back and choose one of the kind of dirt brushes that we have here. So I'm going to choose the dirt spots, I believe. Go ahead and double click on this. You can see the preview of that. I'm going to right click, decrease the size a bit, and then we can choose what we're actually going to paint. So in this case, let's say that we're painting some dirt, okay? And so think about it. Okay, we're going to paint the color, which will make like a brown or a black kind of dark color. So maybe something like that for the color. But what else is the dirt going to contribute to the material? Well, the dirt is an added substance on top of the bone. And so you're going to have a little bit of height. And so we can add a slight amount of height if we want to. It's so slight that if you don't add that, it's totally fine. The roughness as well. The bone's going to be a little bit shinier probably than the dirt. And so we can say, okay, wherever the dirt is, it's going to be this color. It's going to be a little bit off of the surface, and the roughness is going to be, it's going to be a little bit more rough. Okay. And you can kind of see the effect of that there. All right. And then it's not going to be metallic at all. And so now when we paint, we're painting not only the color, but we're also painting the shininess from the roughness and the height. So now we can come in, and I'm going to leave symmetry off because the dirt's definitely not going to be symmetrical. And now we can go in and start to paint on this layer. And I'm just going to come in and kind of paint real lightly along the base. And you can see how we're adding that dirt on top of the bone. So I'll just add a little bit all the way around. We can do the same thing kind of up here, kind of add some variation to our horns. You can play with the size of the brush as well. Coming down to the fingers. So let's take our size down a little bit. I'm just going to paint there along the base of these, kind of darken things up a little bit. Maybe here and there I'll add a little bit that's further out to kind of just add a little bit of variation to it. But I don't want to go too crazy with it. Same thing right there. And then maybe the toes are, he's walking around on them, so they're probably a little bit dirtier. And so we can go a little bit heavier with the dirt that we want to add here. And it maybe extends out a little bit further. And, there's probably more on the underside where it's constantly hitting the ground. And so we can add more that way. We'll do the same thing here. Add a little bit along the intersection there, down underneath. All right, so something like that. Let's do the same thing on the other side. I'll just quickly paint that in. And the nice thing is this is all happening on its own layer. And so we can paint different levels of dirt. We can paint different, narratively, there may be times where, you need to have splashes of something else or, burn marks from an explosion that only happens at a certain part of the story. And you can layer these things on top of each other and turn them off and on. And so, for instance, we see the dirt here. If we look at this, this is on a layer, so I can turn it off and on. I can dial down the intensity of it. Okay. I can go back in and erase parts of it so that I get it exactly the way that I want. And I'm working in a really flexible way. We're not working with explicit textures until we export these out. Right now, we're just trying to get the look that we want without worrying about, what texture I'm painting on. Am I painting a roughness map? Am I painting a color map? I'm just painting to create these different effects. And then Painter will output those maps exactly the way that I need them for whatever we're using. In this case, we're going to be rendering an image with Arnold. So we can come in here to the fingers, and I'll just kind of scruff those up a little bit. Same thing down here. Just kind of rough it up a bit. And there's lots of different brushes that you can use. There's spots where it would be like think something has gotten wet and then dried. There are lots of different effects that you can get, and you can see all of the brushes that you have available in here. And so you can see over here's one that's sort of like scratches. You could do the same thing, for instance, on the, some of these, like the tooth, let's say. You could add some scratches to it. And we could do that with if we wanted to do it individually and not go too crazy, we could go ahead and get just the basic hard brush. Let's take our size down. And let's go ahead and say, all right, for this is a scratch. So the height and the color are going to be the main things. And so I'll turn everything else off. For the color, I'll go ahead and dial that color down. Let's create a new paint layer for this so we can adjust it separately. And then for the height, I'm going to pull the height down a little bit because the scratch is going into the surface. We can check our brush size. We want it to be a little bit smaller. And now you can see what happens when we just stroke through there. We can get these little nicks and scratches. And you can see if it's a little bit too much, we can dial down our height or adjust it with a filter. But we can take our brush height down by going down to height, and let's decrease that amount so that we're not pushing in as much. And so we can come in and just add some little dings and scratches just real lightly. Coming in here on the side here where it's kind of lighter, and we could add a few, give some life to it. You could do the same thing up here. And then, on the fingers, you're going to be grabbing weapons and things, and you may have more scratches on that because it's going to be interacting with things more. And so you can come in and start to add some detail like that. That kind of just makes it look a little bit more like it's had a life. And again, those are on a separate layer. And so you can turn that off, adjust it, erase elements of it if it's not working. But it just adds a little bit more to the model there. And I'll do the same thing over here. Just add some scratches. Just to add a little bit more realism. All right. So kind of go to town on this. Add some dirt, add some scratches. You can color the dirt based on his home world, what that looks like. Maybe there's moss or something growing on him as well. It's kind of up to you. Okay, so something like that. So by using one of the materials in Substance Painter, and then we're able to layer our own details on top of that to create the effect that we want. So it's nice to have some of those pre-made things that will give us a look very quickly, and then we can go in and really customize the look that we want to get. So what we're going to do next is come in and start creating the base for the gold medallion. So we will do that next.